Hello and welcome to a very special edition of the Full Force News Burst, brought to you by generalsjoes.com, with me as your host, Chris Slapstick Battles McLeod, aka Diagnostic 80. On this instalment of your absolutely favourite kind of burst, we have the man behind Plastic Battles on Facebook, Twitter, Flickr, YouTube, Instagram, everything in the universe, Paul Panfalone, to talk about his amazing photography, podcast and more. So without further ado, let's get stuck into this news burst. On the show tonight, we have a very talented individual who first came to my attention on Twitter with his incredible photography during a mind-boggling 100-day photo challenge. Every single image was painstakingly composed and thought out and focused almost entirely on vintage G.I. Joe figures. He's one of my favourite toy photographers at the moment and has added a number of other talents to the roster with his own podcast and YouTube channel. Welcome to the show, Plastic Battles, Paul Panfalone. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thanks for that intro, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to have me on.
Oh, not at all, not at all. I've just been absolutely mesmerised by some of the photos, so I've just been dying to get you on to chat about photography. So first off, could we get a bit of background, please? Were you a Joe fan as a kid? How did you get into toy photography, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, for sure. So I was born in 76, so it was like the perfect age when G.I. Joe came back in 82. Prior to that, I was all into Star Wars and stuff.
Nice.
And, so I had all the Star Wars figures that I could get my hands on as a little kid. And then after that, I think I took a trip to a drugstore with my mom.
Right.
And there was they kind of plant those little toy aisles right near the prescription pickup, perfectly placed so that when your parents are getting up prescriptions or have to wait, you can pick all the toys you want and badger them to buy them for you. So I still remember this very clearly, just an empty sea of pegs. I was looking for Star Wars figures. There wasn't any, but there was one figure in this sea of pegs, and it was a Cobra Soldier.
Nice.
Straight arm version. I had no idea what it was. I didn't know what G.I. Joe was. I hadn't seen any commercials or anything. But he was so cool, and that artwork was so amazing.
Yeah.
I had to have it. My mom got it for me, and then that was it. I was hooked. I don't think I got more than a handful of Star Wars figures after that. It was pretty much G.I. Joe was my number one go-to after that.
Yeah, very similar thing for me, actually. I had a few kind of early Palatoy Star Wars toys and stuff, and then ended up selling them at a car boot sale or a flea market or whatever you guys want to call it. And and G.I. Joe Action Force at the time took over completely. So I totally understand where you're coming from there. How did you get into actual toy photography then? How did that come about?
Well, funny enough, actually as a kid, I think it would have been 86, 87 in that area. My mom had a Polaroid camera, a little handheld Polaroid that she used to keep in the top drawer of her desk. And so in the summertime and things, when she was busy doing stuff, I would sneak the camera outside and, I'd have all my Joes set up, back in the day. It would take me 2 hours to set up a scene, and then I'd play for 15 minutes and then it'd be over. So the setup was the most important part. And I wanted to take pictures of it, and especially, kind of with the catalogs that came with the vehicles, they'd have in the early years, they had the dioramas and stuff. So I kind of wanted to set up the figures and take photos. So I started doing that with my mom's Polaroid camera until she moved it and I couldn't find it. So
thanks, Mom.
Yeah, she's crushing my dreams. Well, so she would go to use it and there'd be no film left. And since there's Polaroids, there was no evidence. I would hoard the Polaroids. It wasn't like a film she'd get them developed and see the Joe photos. There would just be, a whole pack of Polaroids was gone, and she wouldn't understand what was going on. And of course, I would lie and say it wasn't me. So she just
meanwhile your room is just covered in Polaroid pictures.
Yeah, with strings between them.
Exactly. Yeah, silent option. Yeah.
So I did that, and then of course later in life. When I was in college and stuff, I took a minor in photography. I did a few projects with whatever figures I had.
Cool.
They didn't make it anywhere. It was just for school. And once the Instagram came out, on my old Instagram account, I took a couple, shelfie photographs. And then that would have been 2010, I think. And, I took that stuff outside and I shot some stuff outside. And that really didn't make it anywhere either until I think it would have been 2014, I started seeing other people doing it. There's a guy on Instagram with the handle Attica Gazette. He has a different handle on Flickr. but I saw his work on Flickr, and I saw a few other people's, I think Outrider Dios and stuff like that. And I was really interested in it. And I'm like, I should do this. I should dust off my DSLR and take some photos. So I started doing that with Plastic Battles, I think in, man, I don't know. It's been like 3 years now or something like that.
Cool. Yes. And of course, talking about that as well, I mean, we've got to talk about that 100-day challenge. I mean, that was amazing. So as I mentioned in the intro, you completed that pretty impressive 100 photos in as many days on your social platforms. What made you decide to take that challenge up, and how difficult was it? Were you cursing yourself on like day 76?
Yeah, I think I was cursing myself on day 2 because I had so much going on. And I'm like, oh man, I already announced I'm doing this.
I've got 98 more of these to do.
100-day project, and I got 1 day in. Is really what I thought was going to happen. But yeah, there's a few times where I was like, man, why did I do this? But I think the year before, posted like almost every day for a long time. I don't know how many days it was. I don't think it was 100, but so I had a little bit of experience trying to post every day, and it doesn't seem on the surface like it would be tough to do, but with work and my girlfriend and like things going on, it's hard to
totally
get all the photos you need. You either sit down and you do a whole batch of photos on one day and you use them as long as you can, or there were days where you're out of photos and you've got to like quick find something to shoot and get the light right or shoot inside or something. So JoeCon was tough. I actually cheated. I had posted a couple photos.
I saw
of
word bagler and
like I was like, there's no way I'm gonna get a real toy photo today, so I did that. But yeah, I think the 100-day challenge was something that a lot of graphic designers do, creatives and stuff, and that's where my background lies. So
did you set yourself rules, like it had to be one of those things where you had to set the scene up and actually compose it on that particular day, or could it be one of those things where you could build up a few different ones and then use them, like say if you were busy one day, you could just take from the lot? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, there was no rule like that. I think I ended up probably splitting it half and half. I think half the days were probably posts that I had photographed on a different day, and the other half was stuff that I literally did that day and retouched it and put up on Instagram and Twitter and wherever. But it was something where prior to this 100 days, I wasn't posting as frequently as I wanted to.
Yeah.
And I had gotten a couple new lenses that I wanted to use. So really the 100-day challenge, I guess, for me was to get myself posting on the regular, to learn as much as I could just about myself in photography, but also the lenses that I got.
Yeah.
What could I do with these lenses? One was kind of like a macro lens, and one was a wide angle lens. So they were very different lenses.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of learning the tools. And I feel like even now, up to this point, everything I've done in my Instagram feed is just learning as much as I can so that I can be better down the road.
Were there any favorites in all of those that you posted? Were there any that kind of stick out to you now that you can kind of go, oh God, I remember that. So that's one of my favorites. I really love how that turned out.
Yeah, I'm typically pretty critical with the work I've done. So I'll look back on something I did last week and I'll be like, man, that's garbage. What was I thinking? The lighting's terrible or the composition sucks. But there are a few that still kind of hold up to me. I mean, I think the one with Roadblock running to the tomahawk.
That was what I was going to say was mine. I absolutely adored that.
Yeah, because you got that goofy Slipstream who's always getting himself into situations, he needs to be rescued. I always look at him as like the guy that gets shot down the first 10 minutes of the battle and someone needs to go in and get him. So
it was, I mean, there's something really, there's loads of dynamism about that picture though. There's like movement and there's, it's like dust kicked up from the chopper blades and everything. It's just really intense as well. There's like a really kind of like, I'm not sure if you've ever seen, I think it's Inside Pararescue on like one of the military or history channels.
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh my God, it's like intense. It's basically like, the special forces guys that go in and rescue people in Afghanistan and like, chopper in, get them in the thing, and then like they have to like perform, all sorts of medical stuff on these people that are in the helicopter while it's flying back. I mean, like, I couldn't think of anything more stressful and horrible to do, but it just reminded me.
Yeah, they gotta go get those slipstreams left and right.
Yeah, Slipstream is just, he's everywhere. He just keeps getting lost, picked up by the enemy. I mean, were there any images in there that took you an absolute age to compose?
Yeah, I mean, there was one especially, was the 4th of July one, which I think is the one like right after that.
Yeah.
Where it's Lifeline and Snow Job and Shipwreck with like the sparklers and the Coke bottles, and there's like, then they got the Stranger Things kids in the background, like wondering what the heck's going on with these like losers who are dressed like Snow Job's 4th of July, but he's in his snowsuit.
Yeah.
But I chose those guys because it was obviously red, white, and blue colors. But that was, the sparkler effect was all done post in like Photoshop, but they are actually holding little metal wire. And I had to put in like sticky tack to hold it into their hands, sticky tack for the Coke bottles. It was really hot that day. My girlfriend's family, her parents were here for the 4th, and they're like in the apartment. I'm outside on the cement for, I don't know, it probably took me 2 hours to get this shot the way I wanted to. And I'm like, I'm just abandoning everyone to get this shot. Then I came in and had to do all the retouching on it. That was another hour of my time. But yeah, I had to get out, like all the sticky tack was on their hands, and I had to Photoshop it all out. So that took a while.
Oh God, I can imagine. Jeez. Speaking of kind of like the setup as well, you also make dios for these images. You got a really cool tutorial on your website, plasticbattles.net. There's a plug that shows people, lovely website by the way, that shows people how to make their own pizza box diorama, which I thought was really awesome. Which aspect do you prefer, making the scenes or photographing them?
I'll probably cop out and say I enjoy both, I guess.
Equal.
Equal, 50-50. No, there are times where doing the dio is more fun. It just depends. Or there are times where that's more laborious and shooting's more fun. It just depends on my mood, I guess. I think the pizza box dios was something where I think I had seen that somewhere years ago online. And I was like, oh, that's a cool idea. So when I started doing this and it gets really, the weather turns, I'm in Ohio, so it gets cold and snowy. And I don't want to take these, sometimes I don't want to take these like 30-something-year-old plastic outside in the cold and stuff. So a
lot of O-ring damage will go on.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They'll dry rot instantly. But yeah, they just shatter as soon as I set them down. I feel like that's what's going to happen. Just my photos will just be a pile of plastic in the snow.
God, isn't that sad? Yeah.
Like, that's like a starduster or something. Just disintegrates.
Don't. I must admit, I've probably changed about 300 O-rings in my time now. It just, you get to the stage where you can do it with one hand. Like you can kind of hold everything in one, balance it all in one place to put the, to kind of clamshell the body back together, but you got to keep the arms and the head in place. So like I can do that with like one hand without even looking now. Yeah,
I did a video on that too, just because I know everyone knows how to change an O-ring, but I actually had some of my friends who saw my photography who were like, I should, dig out my old Joes. So they did. And of course they're all dry rotted and they're like, oh, they're all broken. I was like, well, you can change the O-ring pretty easily. I tried to describe it, and they're like, oh, and I could tell they didn't get it. I'm like, I'll make a video. So I did one, and it's on my YouTube, which is like, there's only a few things up there. But with the pizza box dios, I was like, well, this is like, I live in a really small apartment. We don't have a lot of room right now.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, the pizza box is perfect because it only takes up so much space. And if I build it in a way that isn't too heavy, I can kind of collapse it down, close the lid, and like store it,
That's
stack the pizza boxes. So I've been doing that here and there. My next adventure with that stuff, I think, is to really build a true diorama where get a couple sawhorses, a piece of plywood, and like build a larger dio with vehicles and things.
Yeah.
But that's coming up when we're planning to move here in the next few months to
cool.
Cleveland, which is like down the road, and we'll actually have a house.
Yeah,
and I'll have way more room to do that kind of stuff. So
I look forward to seeing massive dios from you then.
Yeah, massive. Like the European catalog photography is.
Oh like my God, isn't that the most gorgeous stuff you've ever seen?
Yeah, so much so. Like I didn't know that stuff existed till I was an adult. Of course, I didn't know that stuff was out there, and I loved the North American photography. And then when I saw the UK and the Northern European stuff, I was like, man, this blows away the North American stuff just from the amount of it and the quality. The Benelux.
I mean, like you got Belgian, Netherlands, you got all sorts of kind of places like that did these incredible dioramas, and there's one that's like a Tiger Force one, and it's just like you keep turning the page, and it's like more and more mind blowing each time. There's one that's they're crossing this river, and I'll put it up on the actual show as well so you can see it. And they're all like, some of them are submerged in the water, and some of them are out of the water, and it's just like, oh my goodness! Like the level they went to do that, and again, that must be something you appreciate massively as a.
It is my number one inspiration, that stuff now, and like the one with Outback crossing the rope bridge, and there's like a waterfall behind him. I just. And like some people, like I've been thinking about this a lot, and Hector Garrido and these other artists are, getting kind of their due for the work they've done.
Yeah.
But I always think about all the photographers and the artists who created the dioramas.
Just have no idea.
No one will ever know. I don't know if they probably worked for an agency that Hasbro hired, and it was just part of their docket of work to do it. But I love that blue collar kind of like those artists from back in the day, that it was just a job to them. It was just some guy or some woman that went in, did their job and went home, but they created this long lasting, inspiring stuff.
Yeah. I like it when you find out that an artist worked on something that you absolutely loved and you didn't realize, because that's happened so often to me with not just comics, but like, art, like box art. For such a long time, I didn't know Guy Cassaday had designed a lot of the vehicles, and then also was like Rolling Thunder, for example. When I found that out, I was like, holy shit. And the Desert Fox as well, like the 6-wheel drive, all those kind of things, and the X30 and all that. I mean, just nuts. But then, yeah, you're right. And all these guys that have done the photography for this stuff kind of slipped away in almost like, you don't know who they are, or won't know who they are unless they come forward and say, oh yeah, I did that. But to them, it would have just been a job amongst many other things they did that day, I'd imagine.
Right, and there's no way to know this stuff would last like it did. It wasn't like the grown adults of the kids from then would still be fascinated by this stuff. And one thing I did try to do was track down a little bit of a photographer, or at least some people that worked on it. And I found a guy who was selling transparencies of photographs, because he either worked at or with the agency that produced those.
Cool.
So I picked up a few, and I picked up a Defiant one, really. It's like an 8x10 Defiant. It's got notes on the corners. You could see all the risers they had it up on, and all the lighting and rig in the background. And he was looking into it, but the person responsible for those wanted to remain anonymous. And I was like, oh man, I was so close.
Yeah.
I was so close, because I wanted to try to get him on the podcast.
Yeah.
But maybe down the road, we'll see.
Well, let's talk about that as well. I mean, so you started your own podcast as well. Could you tell us about that, please? What topics you discuss, guests, that kind of stuff?
Well, it's something that I was thinking about doing at the end of last year. So I started at the beginning of this year, and I have not been as frequent as I wanted to with it, just based on a few things. But basically what I wanted to do was, because there's such a robust, really, toy photography community on Instagram especially, that I wanted to listen to a podcast about toy photography, and I really didn't find any. I think there's a couple now, but at the time, this would have been end of last year, I couldn't really find any. So I'm like, well, why don't I start one, especially because if there were, they'd probably focus more on like Star Wars or Marvel Legends or something.
Yeah.
And I wanted to still include that stuff, but really focus it on Joe. So basically what I've done so far is I'm trying to treat it more like a radio show if I can, just to have fun with it.
Yeah.
And I'm learning as I go with it. But I've had on a few of my favorite photographers so far.
That's great. That's awesome.
And yeah, it's guys that I think they have a decent following, but maybe they don't have the following that I think they deserve.
Sure,
because there's some great work out there that just flies under the radar because there's just so much of it. So I've had a few people on so far that I really admired, and I've got a bunch more kind of lined up. I'm going to be recording another one this weekend.
Brilliant.
And yeah, so I'm going to try to be 2019. I've got a bunch of goals, but one of them is to be more regular with the podcast. I'd really like to start off doing once a month and then get it to twice a month if possible, and go from there. And one of the things I've learned, you probably know this, is if you record a monster episode up front, the editing time is just like
Yes.
It's basically like 10 times the amount of time it took you to record it.
Easily. I mean, I've mentioned it on this show before. Like if you do like for example, we do a 15-minute, 20-minute news burst. It takes me about 3 hours to edit. So I try and get them done early. Try and get them because I tend to because I'm not saying you're not because I don't know, but I'm extraordinarily meticulous when it comes to the audio. Like it has to be like I have to get rid of any noise, any cracks or bumps or anything that that are like in the open. If it's like mixed in with the vocal, then sometimes I'll leave. Obviously, I'll just leave it alone. But for the most part, I'll remove dead air. I'll remove everything. So I have to go through like what we do now. I'll have to go back to the beginning and again what you do when you do your recording, and then literally from A to B, from beginning to end, just listen to it again and cut as I go, so that I don't, and then you like drag it along, like cut, sort that out, quickly move it along, move on to play it again, and I'm doing that like every almost split second now. It's like, and I'm so fast at it. Kate was watching me the other day, and she was like, "What are you even doing?" Like she had no. It was like the Flash was working on it. But I mean, I've been doing this now for about the editing for this podcast over 5 years. But prior to that, like editing for music and recordings and stuff like that. So this is something that is like second nature now to me. And how have you? I mean, it kills you, doesn't it? I mean, how it's time consuming, but also so laborious at times, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, what I learned was too is like, of course, I'm a total noob at this. I don't, I just like I'll start a podcast, I'll figure it out as I go. One thing I learned is like if you record like 2 or 3 hours, right? There's all that editing, but as you're editing it, you've got to listen to the whole thing over. And I was like, I got to listen to this all over again. Yeah. And like you said, back and forth on each little part.
I used to get through the entire edit. Once I did it once, and then I would listen to the whole thing again, like with before I'd posted it, just to make sure everything was right. How mental is that?
It's crazy. If you have a long episode, like you basically spend all your day doing podcast stuff, And I think one thing I learned was if there's things I need to edit out, to write the time marker down.
Good idea.
On a pad of paper. So I know exactly when it happened because I'm like, I think it happened here. And then I'm like, nope. And I don't know when that swear word was or, when the person farted on air, I missed it,
That's staying on.
And then I've got a couple basically elephants living upstairs at this apartment.
Oh my goodness.
Just, I don't know what they're throwing bowling balls against the floor every time I'm trying to record a podcast. And, I record, you probably do the same in 2 tracks, right?
Yeah.
One for them, one for me.
Yes. Good man.
Right. If I happen to be talking while the bowling ball hit the floor and I didn't realize it, then I'm like, well, do I like stupidly just re-record what I said right here afterwards? Or do I just let it sit? And, it just becomes a thing. But I enjoy it. And I think if I record in smaller bits, it'll be much easier to handle.
Yeah.
And then when the people who do this like big time send it off somewhere to have people edit. I'm like,
they send it off to people like me to do it, and then.
Really? Okay, so I'll send it to you next time.
No, don't. I seem to I managed to dodge a bullet with What's on Joe Mind the other day because Kate's on their show, and Mike's like, no, I'll do all the editing. As in, she did it was like a ladies' night. Episode 3 or something.
Cool.
So they did that last night, and I was like, do they want me to record it and edit it? And she was like, oh no, Mike's going to do all that. And I was like, oh, thank the Lord. So thank you,
right,
Mike.
because you're like, there goes a day.
Yeah. Totally. And they were on for about 3 hours. So yeah, that would have been the rest of my life. So as well as obviously doing more of those podcasts and stuff, have you got any other plans for the future? Any more, I don't know, ridiculous photography challenges you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think, one thing that I'm going to do is this coming week, I think Tuesday, I'm going to release postcard battles, which is something I've teased on Instagram a little bit and my live videos. And I think I put a post up with the postcards battle logo. But basically what it is I was making prints available of my work for a while for people who asked for them.
Yeah.
And so I sold some just, photo prints. But I was looking at it and I was like, man, anybody could sell a photo print. And so like I kind of wanted to give the photos more of
a practicality.
utilitarian.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally.
I'm like, what can I do with these that's like beyond just a photo print? And I was like, so I did some research and I looked into like World War I and Civil War era, and there was like the number one way troops communicated with their families was postcards. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I looked into it, and man, they would have like graphic scenes of war and stuff. And then they would send that home with a note like, I'm okay, but this guy didn't make it or something. And I'd be like, what are these? And so there's a whole trove of that on the internet. So I was going through that, and I was like, yeah, I think postcards is the way to go. So basically what I did is I printed up oversized postcards. So basically the first series 1 is 5 different photos that I have done. And on the back is basically like a postcard. You could send it or not, you could use it as a postcard.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was cool to do. And like, I only printed 20 of each. So they're limited edition. So there's only, they're going to be hand numbered, 1 of 20 on each of the prints. And then basically once they sell, if they sell, then I won't print those ones ever again. And then series 2 would be different.
I'll be buying a few.
Cool.
No doubt. I might even buy a couple of multiples because I want to send. I could send some to like my folks in the UK. They get a kick out of that.
Well, the roadblock one is one of them that I printed this time.
Sweet. I honestly, dude, that is probably one of my favorite pictures you've ever done. And I mean, that's not to say that the other stuff you've done isn't as up to that kind of standard at all. It's just
garbage.
It's just yeah. I don't even know why we did this podcast.
I know. It's like, why am I here?
What a waste of a burst.
This burst was a bust.
Exactly. No, not at all. No, I love your stuff. I love seeing it when it comes up. I always, when I see it, I always like it, and not just because I'm like, because I know you. It's because I absolutely do dig it. But there's something about that. There's something about that image that just, I think the Tomahawk is just such an iconic vehicle as well. Like, yeah, that's probably one of my favorite all-time vehicles of the Joe line.
It is iconic. I mean, it says G.I. Joe right when you see it.
Yeah, it says Action Force to me, but I know what you mean.
I'm sorry. What's Action Force?
Right, this interview is over.
Oh, that's what the full force meant.
That's what it means. I guarantee there'll be people that just get that now that you've said that.
They're like, oh, really? Yeah. So I tried to populate that photo too with the 86. The 86 yes. crew too, so I like to do these little Easter eggs in the photos once in a while where they're just so much like people in the know would know. Oh, that's all 86 guys, you know, or something like that. But
do you know what? I didn't notice. Obviously, I knew the characters are in there, but that didn't dawn on me. So I feel really bad now because I should be in the know and I should know that. But that's awesome.
It's just something that I like to layer in once in a while. Like if people get it, cool. If it's not integral to the photo.
Sure,
it's just
sure.
Like to do, like color coordinating guys or guys together with vehicles that are like way separated in the line, but the colors match perfectly.
Sure. Well, the red, white, and blue is another one. That those particular characters as you chose for the July the 4th image. Like that's another cute little thing that again I didn't pick up on initially.
And they're literally in red, white, and blue in that order.
So dumb. For me, I mean, not knowing. But knowing is half the battle, and I clearly know less than half of
what's the other half of the battle?
I want to say horrible, tragic violence. That's what I'm going to go with.
I'm going to go with parachutes.
Yes, that's better. Slipstream getting caught behind enemy lines is the other half of the battle.
Yeah, they stopped giving him a parachute. They're like, we wasted too much silk on this guy. A silk stream.
And that's what... Silk stream. Oh, that is genius. Anyway, buddy, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on again. I really appreciate it.
Not at all. In fact, whenever you want to jump on, feel free. We'd love to have you on more often. Even if you just wanted to talk about stuff that, other things, if you want to get involved in, other bursts or whatever, we'd love to have you on.
Yeah, that'd be amazing, man. Totally. I'm down with that.
Totally. It's been an absolute pleasure, buddy. That's it for this instalment of the Full Force News Burst. Thank you to my wonderful guest, Paul Panfalone, a.k.a. Plastic Battles Unlike Everything. See you next time, and as always, full plastic force. Full force. Plastic force. Full plastic battle force. That works. Full plastic battle force. Make sure you get involved with the discussion by liking, sharing and commenting on these videos, and as always you can keep up with the show after listening by following on Twitter @TheFullForce, liking the Facebook page facebook.com/TheFullForce, and if you would like to contact the show you can message us on either of these platforms with feedback, questions or to say, who do you think you are? A serious operation now? No, not even close. Look out for more of these news bursts that we are posting on the Facebook page from now on. Full Force.